Dark clouds hung low over Washington, casting a heavy shadow over Capitol Hill. The morning sun was nowhere to be seen, swallowed by the thick gray sky. A sharp wind funneled through Pennsylvania Avenue, tugging at the flags perched atop the neoclassical buildings. Washington was being Washington, a city where power was wielded with a firm handshake and a sharpened blade. Here, every storm, whether political or literal, was met with cameras, commentary, and controversy. At the east entrance of the Capitol, the media had already set up camp. Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, and international outlets were lined up behind the barricades. Reporters in trench coats stood stiff, their faces tense with anticipation. Words like high-profile hearing and potential criminal charges had set the press corps on fire. The event of the day? A congressional investigation into one of the most severe leaks of federal law enforcement intelligence in recent history. This wasn't just another hearing. This was a national security crisis. ICE, the agency tasked with taking down violent criminal gangs and human traffickers, had been running highly classified operations, yet time and time again, their targets had vanished just minutes before ICE teams arrived. Someone on the inside was leaking information, tipping them off, sabotaging the operations. And this wasn't some random mistake. The people escaping weren't just ordinary, undocumented immigrants. They had direct ties to violent gangs, trafficking rings, and serious criminal records. Someone was protecting them, and this was no coincidence. Today, under the grand dome of the Capitol, the hunt for the traitor had begun. As they stepped past the towering columns of the Capitol and into the rotunda, the real storm could be felt brewing inside. The House Oversight and Reform Committee was about to convene one of the most explosive hearings in years. The atmosphere in the chamber was like a powder keg ready to blow. Lawmakers sat in the front rows, their faces shifting between cold determination and barely restrained frustration. The seating arrangement alone revealed the divide. On the right, Republicans sat like a wall of steel, their expressions firm, ready for battle. On the left, Democrats looked either indifferent or poised to spin the hearing into yet another political spectacle. In the gallery, spectators murmured, journalists jotted down notes, and committee aides darted between desks. Every microphone was hot. Every camera was rolling. And then, Tom Homan walked in. The former acting ICE director was a man who measured his words carefully. He was also the kind of man who wouldn't blink in the face of political theater. Broad-shouldered, sharp-eyed, and with an air of unshakable authority, he was the kind of presence that commanded respect, whether you liked him or not. He had spent decades on the front lines of border enforcement, staring down cartel traffickers, gang enforcers, and endless bureaucratic red tape. But today, his adversaries weren't cartel members or fugitives. They were sitting right across from him, draped in political power and righteous indignation. Homan adjusted his microphone, leaned forward, and locked eyes with the committee members. The room held its breath. It had begun. "It's simple," Homan said. "People die." The room went silent. The weight of his words settled over the chamber, shifting the tone of the entire hearing. Homan leaned back in his chair, scanning the committee members. Everyone in the room felt the impact of what he had just said. When an ICE operation is sabotaged, we're not just talking about criminals slipping away, he continued. These people go back into the community. They don't just disappear. They keep committing crimes. Murders, human trafficking, drug smuggling. These aren't just statistics. These are real cases. And these criminals, they're getting away because someone on the inside is feeding them information. Behind him, the massive screen lit up, displaying records of failed ICE raids. MS-13 gang members, human traffickers, felons with violent records. These weren't innocent people. Homan shifted his gaze toward the left side of the committee. "This information was leaked from the inside," he said, his voice as sharp and unwavering as ever. "The Department of Justice has confirmed that a federal employee deliberately sabotaged these operations." AOC leaned back in her chair, shaking her head slightly. Her expression was defiant. "This is pure political theater," she said. The sarcasm in her voice only added to the tension in the room. ICE has a long history of targeting immigrant communities. And now you want to frame this as a public safety issue? Homan narrowed his eyes. He could see exactly what she was doing, turning this into a political show. "No, this is a criminal issue," Homan fired back. "ICE's job is to arrest criminals." We don't separate families, we arrest gang leaders. But the people you're defending? They were tipped off. So let me ask you, whose side are you on? The American people's or the criminals? AOC took a sharp breath. Are you seriously accusing me of supporting illegal activity? Her voice wasn't as steady this time. Homan leaned forward, lowering his voice, making it even sharper. I'm just stating the facts, he said. ICE targets people with criminal records. We go after human traffickers, drug smugglers, violent offenders. And because of these leaks, some of them are still walking free. So here's the real question. Who leaked this information and why? The room tensed. Low murmurs spread through the chamber. Even some of the Democratic members looked uneasy. Jim Jordan turned to AOC, furrowing his brows. The questioning was about to get direct. We have an email, Jordan said, motioning toward the screen. A document appeared, its contents clear. This message provided advance warning about an ICE operation. And it was sent from your office. Do you have anything to say about that? AOC glanced at the document, then leaned back. There was a brief hesitation before she spoke. I didn't personally send that email, she said. Her voice wasn't as firm as before. If someone from my office did, I can't be held responsible for every message sent. The tension in the room reached a boiling point. Homan shook his head as if he had expected this answer all along. So that's how it is, he said. Either you don't have control over your own staff or you knew and stayed silent. Which one is it? Jordan adjusted his microphone. This wasn't over. Then I say we let the FBI present their findings, he said. The doors at the back of the chamber swung open. FBI Special Agent Matthew Crowley entered the room. The doors swung open and FBI Agent Matthew Crowley made his way to the witness table. The energy in the room had shifted. What had started as a partisan debate was now turning into something much more serious. A high-stakes interrogation rooted in hard facts. Crowley placed a thick file on the table, took a deep breath, and looked around. Everyone in the room could feel the weight of what was coming. For the past 6 months, my office has been investigating these leaks, he said, his voice firm and authoritative. And what we've uncovered is deeply concerning. The screen behind him flickered to life, revealing encrypted messages. ICE operations are underway. Spread the word immediately. Stay hidden. Teams will move in at 4 a.m. Here's the plan. Get them to the safe houses. The air in the chamber grew heavier. Whispers spread through the room. A few journalists started scribbling notes even faster. Jim Jordan turned his attention to AOC, his expression sharp and demanding. These messages were confirmed to have come from your office, Jordan said. How do you explain that? AOC's face tensed. For a few seconds, she seemed to be weighing her words carefully. Then, adjusting her microphone, she finally spoke. I didn't personally send those messages, she said. Her voice was steady, but there was tension beneath it. My staff operates independently. Tom Homan slowly nodded. This was exactly the kind of response he had expected. Crossing his arms, he locked eyes with AOC, his tone turning even colder. Interesting, he said. So either you're directly responsible or you've completely lost control of your own office. Which one is it? AOC's fingers tightened around the edge of the desk. The question was direct. There was no easy way out. A few seconds of silence followed, but in that silence, everyone in the room felt the gravity of the moment. Then, leaning forward, AOC spoke, frustration creeping into her voice. This is a witch hunt, she snapped. You're throwing around baseless accusations just to go after your political opponents. Crowley slowly shook his head. His voice remained calm and calculated. Are these messages not evidence? He asked. Letting the question hang in the air for a moment, the room tensed even further. We have direct proof that ICE operations were deliberately sabotaged. These messages were sent from your office to activist groups. Do you understand the gravity of this? This is a serious national security violation. AOC hesitated. For the first time, the confidence in her voice wavered. A murmur ran through the committee members. Even some of the Democrats shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few avoided making eye contact with AOC, while others sat still, waiting for the right moment to step in. Jim Jordan tapped his pen against the desk, then broke the silence. One last question, he said, his voice cutting through the tension. Are we calling on the Department of Justice to open a full investigation? The Republicans immediately nodded in agreement. A few Democrats remained silent. This was no longer a political debate. It had become a legal issue. Jordan gathered the documents in front of him, leaned into the microphone, and delivered the final words of the session. "These files will be sent to the DOJ," he said. "This isn't over." The atmosphere in the chamber had completely shifted. AOC quietly pushed back her chair. Reporters swarmed, firing off questions as she moved toward the exit. But this time, she didn't respond. She walked out quickly, not looking back. As she passed by, Tom Homan turned toward the cameras, his face cold, his words deliberate. "This is just the beginning."